The Paperclip Murders, Chapter 17, An Amish Buttermaker. Retribution was suddenly in my hand, barking her call for vengeance as all the fury of 1,000 hells. It was like a Norman Rockwell painting, if he'd taken acid and painted the Normandy beach invasion with a circus motif. People scattered everywhere as the clown and I took cover behind our prospective hot dog cart and light pole and exchanged hot death, each of us racking up handfuls of IOUs to the bullets whizzing by. And then the telltale click of the hammer fell in an empty chamber in his gun. I put the sights of retribution squarely over the clown's suddenly surprised face, his hideous mouth gaping in one of those nightmarish O's, and pulled the trigger. Click went my own hammer, and the spell was broken. The spawn of Satan bolted from his light pole, excreting a taunting honk from somewhere on his hellish person, and his big red shoes went slap, slap, slap down the sidewalk. I felt bad for poor old Sal, but staying here and orating a eulogy over spilt mustard and onions wasn't going to get me any closer to punching that red nose to the back of that clownish skull. And by God, I was in a mood to play some Punch and Judy. My feet propelled me forward, and I leapt over the downed cart like a prized racehorse, reloading my gun's hungry chambers on the run. Ahead of me, the clown darted from side to side, careening wildly across, by, and through the crowds of people and the obstacles in his way. I tried to get a good shot lined up, stopping momentarily to do so, but the dad-blasted pedestrians ran about like so many headless chickens squawking. With not a moment to lose, I rejoined the chase, and off we were, passing shop after store, me leaping over a table and around a hedge, the clown bull-rushing a poor old lady and sending a baby buggy flying into the street. The retarded stepchild of Satan darted around the corner on the far end of the block, and I increased my speed to not lose him, but I was a good 30 yards behind him. When I crossed the corner, I saw him halfway down the next block in front of me, and he'd just mugged a bicycle courier and stolen his bike. I yelled, "Stop that clown!" and kept on going, an Olympic skier on a slalom course headed straight for oblivion. The clown sped up on the bike, and I was in danger of losing him altogether, my strength flagging. But then the light of the universe shone down on me, and there to my right, a young kid just stepped out of a skateboard shop with a brand new board in his hands. Without regard for my own personal safety, I snatched the board from the kid's hand and mounted it, having only enough time to shout, "I owe you one, kid," before the gradual slope of the hill took me on the ride of my life. Trying to describe the next bit of my gut-churning pursuit would be like trying to describe what it's like to be birthed by an elephant. It's just something you have to go through to understand. Needless to say, every second I was on that skateboard was another second that all the angels in heaven held their breath and flailed their arms madly, trying to flag me down, probably to ask how in the 7 blue blazes I ever got so brain-frothing insane. The board went this way, that way, and probably half a dozen impossible ways, and somehow I managed to remain on it, while ahead of me the clown went through a light and bowled over pedestrian after pedestrian, pedaling madly on the bike like he was an Amish buttermaker. And then I discovered the crucial design flaw that whoever the sorry son of a gun was who invented the skateboard, probably some escaped mental patient who thought he was a time traveler, had undoubtedly discovered a millisecond before he planted the next carnation patch in the old memorial cemetery. This thing had no brakes. The board swooped down the incline and across the street, narrowly passing between the traffic, and broke the sound barrier, which actually sounds more like a heck of a lot of screaming than a boom. In fact, it sounds a heck of a lot like a world-famous private detective screaming. And then the screaming stopped, right about the same time that the board's wheels connected with a chunk of raised concrete, and I went flying up against a trash bin. My gun absconded, skittering underneath the grimy green bin, while stars danced in my vision, and the world's noises became oddly muffled and echoey. I lurched unsteadily to my feet, ears ringing from the impact, and was shocked and horrified to be seeing double. Horrified because I was looking down the alley, and I saw not one, but 2 clowns. Interestingly, one of them had just fallen off the bicycle he'd been riding. The other had just dismounted from his unicycle. My double vision became even worse when a 3rd clown popped around the corner behind them, and then my blood went cold as a dame's heart. Jumping Jezebel! There were 3 of them! Like a madman, I scrambled for retribution, my fingers just barely tagging the butt of the gun as she refused to jump into my hand, and the clowns quickly advanced on me. One of them picked up a pipe from a trash can closer to them, and their squeaks as they walked became the only thing I could hear, other than the pounding of my heart. Realizing the gun was just too far away to grab before they got to me, I stood up and whirled, my hand dipping into my pocket, and came up with my trusty brass knuckles. The clown that tried to murder me said, "He tried to kill me," in a completely unfunny way, and Bilbo the pipe clown came at me without another word, his weapon whistling Dixie in the air. The fight was on. Now, here I'm going to skip over some of what happened, because there might be dames or young pups about, and there's absolutely no sense in putrefying their appetites or causing their ears to pop from the senseless horror of it all. Let it suffice to say, I'm no Jack Dempsey, but I'm also not a cream puff. Mr. Clean got in a solid with the pipe, but his next missed me and gave the second guy a dental colonic, and between my and the occasional, I put clown number 2 down for the count. Bilbo was next, deciding to sleep the rest of the day off after I gave him a hobo's nightcap, and then it was just me and Sal Killer. I thought of all those delicious Polish sausage dogs I was never going to get to eat again. He tried to bolt, but those stupid shoes couldn't take him far enough fast enough, and I used the pipe to knock his legs out from under him. He crawled away from me, a hand raised protectively over his head, the becoming an amusing soundtrack, and I must admit here that I couldn't help but feel a certain righteous wrath as I picked him up by the front of his puffy buttoned shirt and punched him right in the old proboscis. He went out like a whimpering painted light. I'd forgotten to ask him any questions.